Ferrari's 2025 so far has been bitterly disappointing. To have any chance of salvaging something from what's becoming, by its standards, a terrible season, it needs a big reset, and soon. There are reasons to hope for an upturn in fortunes, which we'll get into shortly, but first, the big question is, why has it gone so wrong? After all, Ferrari ended last year on a positive trajectory. Despite losing out on the Constructors' Championship to McLaren by just 15 points, it was the top scoring team after the August break. The Ferrari SF25 was supposed to be the car that built on the promise of last year, and Ferrari didn't stand still given there were concerns that it reached the limit of development potential of its existing car concept. While still an evolution of the 2024 car in terms of its philosophy, team principal Fred Vasseur described the 2025 design as more than 99% new. The most visually obvious change was the switch to pull rod front suspension, making Ferrari a latecomer to the prevailing trend for this configuration at the front. The wheelbase of the car was also lengthened, which was all part of, as technical director Loic Serra explained, finding space to exploit aerodynamically. The new Ferrari is an improvement in terms of performance, or at least it is when compared with the pace of the car at the same tracks early last season, but it's clearly not a big enough step forward. Others have made bigger gains, and, on average, the Ferrari has been only the fourth fastest car. What's more, it was even challenged by Williams in Miami, with Alex Albon finishing ahead of both Ferraris in the Grand Prix. Ferrari's race performance has been erratic. There have been good moments, notably Lewis Hamilton's sprint successes with victory in China and third in Miami, and Charles Leclerc's third place in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix after showing strong race pace, but for the most part, the races have been disappointing. The double exclusion in China, Charles Leclerc from 5th place for being underweight and Lewis Hamilton from 6th for excessive plank wear, was the low point in terms of results. But the performance in Miami recently was no less dispiriting and, as Leclerc explained, highlighted the car's weaknesses. In qualifying, Leclerc was over half a second off the pace. A significant proportion of that time loss was in the slowest corners, in particular the turn 11 to 16 section, where he shipped 4/10 to Max Verstappen's pole position time. Leclerc finished 7th in the race, a massive 57 seconds behind winner Oscar Piastri, and to make matters worse, there was also a very public spat over team orders. Far from getting better, Miami indicated that Ferrari's season is getting worse. So what's the root cause of Ferrari's lack of performance? Well, we've already referenced one, which is the poor low-speed corner performance. The car isn't the strongest traction-wise, at times has been prone to front brake lockups and understeer in such corners. This suggests that a key strength of previous seasons, the mechanical grip of the car, is no longer there. That's bad news for Leclerc's hopes of a second win on the streets of Monaco later this month. It would be easy to point to the switch to pull rod front suspension for this, and potentially that has played a part. After all, making such a significant change for the final year of a rule cycle is a risk, and Ferrari's technical partner Haas opted not to take the 2025 specification front suspension. Haas team principal Ao Komatsu argued that given the switch to pull rod is about aerodynamic gains, that requires an accompanying re-optimization of the whole car's aero design. As he put it, you have to take a hit first, then you recover. Ferrari has certainly taken a hit, but its recovery has been slow, and while the suspension is part of the problem, likely down less to the geometry and more to the internal components and the struggle to hold the car in the required narrow ride height window, there are also aerodynamic difficulties. The problem Ferrari had with skid wear appears to have led to needing to consistently run a little higher at the rear than intended. The key to extracting performance from these cars is to run as low as possible. Even a rise of say 1mm or less saps downforce. The aero characteristics and the mechanical characteristics are interlinked. Early in the season, the car had an understeer problem in the faster corners that was solved by accepting an increase in rear instability at corner entry. This is the result of what Leclerc has called extreme setup experiments that started in Japan. It's about making the best of it for Ferrari. After all, while that's the best compromise setup for now, the instability is one of the problems causing difficulty for Hamilton. All of these problems are interlinked and ultimately indicate that the car is not running with the setup it was conceived to in terms of ride height. Doing so means that it's at risk of excess plank wear owing to bottoming out. The strengths of last year's car relative to the opposition have been lost, and the weaknesses, for example the difficulty extracting single lap pace in qualifying, have been retained. The one positive that has occasionally manifested itself, for example in Jeddah, is that there are times when the car looks after its rear tyres well over a race stint, but that's not always a strength that's there. Right from the start of the season, the Ferrari has looked like a capricious and inconsistent car on track. The sweet spot is almost impossible to find, and it's clear that the bold step to make changes this year has backfired.
While we're on the topic of racing, F1 Clash is back with its sixth and most action-packed season yet. With nearly 40 million players over the last 5 years, this free-to-play mobile game brings the intensity of Formula 1 straight to your pocket. You'll build your own team, develop winning strategies, and race in real-time head-to-head duels, all set against the backdrop of the official F1 calendar. It's fast-paced, strategic, and incredibly fun, whether you're a casual gamer or a die-hard F1 fan. Season 6 brings updated 2025 team liveries, driver stats, rosters, and a brand new DRS feature, giving you more control over your race strategy. Plus, you can unlock and race with F1 legends like Jenson Button, Damon Hill, Mark Webber, and Gilles Villeneuve, with even more legends joining throughout the season. Download F1 Clash now for free on iOS and Android and experience the thrill for yourself. Just hit the link in the description.
Vasseur has, in public at least, accentuated the positive. He's stressed how narrow the gap is and how big a swing a couple of tenths can make in qualifying. He's also consistently talked up the potential of the car. Indeed, in Miami, he put the struggles down to not extracting the potential of the tyres. He's right that getting the most out of the tricky Pirelli rubber is vitally important, and that was a struggle on race day in Miami. There is likely further performance there for everybody to unlock to a greater or lesser extent. However, Leclerc was very frank about how close Ferrari is to extracting all of the potential from its current car after qualifying in Miami. And there, it's all about increasing the potential of the car. That means Ferrari needs upgrades, and fast. And as Vasseur has confirmed, there will be some small upgrades across the upcoming Imola and Monaco weekends. But it will be the race after that, in Spain, that could be the key to whether Ferrari can turn its season around. The final race of the upcoming triple header in Spain is one where the majority of teams will bring changes to their front wings. This is because the technical directive reducing the permitted flexibility kicks in for that race. Under F1's current front wing load test, no more than 15mm of flexing is allowed. This clarification will reduce that allowance to 10mm. The TD also reduces the flexibility of what are called fish plates. These are the small connecting pieces of bodywork. Vasseur describes the change of front wings in Barcelona as perhaps a reset of performance for all teams. While that's possibly a case of hope over expectation, there are reasons to suppose it could help Ferrari. The problem it had in the high-speed corners, as well as the struggle for front-end grip in the slower stuff, is indicative of a struggle to produce a good balance across a wide range of corner speeds. The flexible front wing is a key tool for achieving that, and it may be an area where Ferrari is behind, despite making gains on that score in the closing stages of last season. However, it would be a mistake to assume that this could cure all Ferrari's ills. The mechanical struggles will remain, and there are rumours in Italy of modifications to the rear suspension coming later in the season. Whether these will be to the geometry or to the internals is for now unclear. Unfortunately for Ferrari's hopes of challenging for the championship, it's all likely to be too little too late, given it's already 152 points down in the Constructors' title race, with Leclerc already 78 points off the pace in the Drivers'. The inevitable question that has to be asked, given 2025 has likely already got away from Ferrari in terms of achieving its objectives of fighting for titles, is whether it's time for the team to switch its focus fully to 2026. It's important to remember that Ferrari has put a significant amount of effort into 2026 development from the start of the year, when the ban on aerodynamic testing of next year's car was lifted. Vasseur made that clear at the end of last year, meaning that it isn't really an option to write off this year and focus on next year, because 26 development was always a priority anyway. However, this does appear to have backed Ferrari into a corner in terms of the scale of the changes it made with its 2025 car and the struggle to make the best of that. Therefore, the question now has to be whether Ferrari chooses to ease up on 26 development to try and make more of its current car. The answer to that surely has to be no. The development rate of an immature car under new rules is steep, whereas for the current car it is very shallow. So any work that's diverted from the 26 car onto the current one is extremely costly. Chances are that decision has already been made. Vasseur said in April that the final call would be made on how to split resources after the first 5 races, and Miami was race 6. Admittedly, at the same time, he also indicated there was still room for manoeuvre. However, with where Ferrari is now, it's very difficult to imagine it can turn around its season from here. While last year it had assistance from Red Bull's struggles after early dominance, it's unrealistic to expect the same thing to happen to McLaren this year. However, that doesn't mean Ferrari can simply turn off work on 2025. What's now critical for the team is that it understands what's gone wrong with this car and ensures that any problems are not replicated next year. Because while the new rules mean a very different car for 2026, the tools and knowledge that have fallen short for Ferrari this year are the same ones being used to design and develop next year's car. That's why the priority now for Ferrari is understanding exactly why it has fallen short so far in 2025.